Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of VENDO Velocity. I'm super excited to introduce our guest today, but first, if you haven't tuned in with us on the VENDO Velocity podcast, we go live every other week on Tuesday, and we talk about the latest platform updates and strategies across Walmart.com, Amazon, and TikTok Shop. And then we also dabble in all things retail media, paid search and social, and advertising as a whole. But without further ado, I wanted to introduce our guest today, Andrew Bell, who many of you probably already know because he is pretty active in the space and he's a great mastermind for all of us Amazonians when it comes to things like building his own GPTs, Amazon Rufus, and really understanding how the shopping experience has evolved on Amazon. So, Andrew, if you could just introduce yourself and give us a bit of a rundown on your background, that would be great.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm the Amazon lead at NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, and I have the number one, two, three GBTs on the GBT store related to Amazon sellers. Kind of an interesting background though to me too is like my expertise goes beyond Amazon to things even like poetry and such, where I have like the number one poetry GBT.
Cool.
And I do like tons of different writing GBTs as well, like how to write in an exact style of someone, things like that, which actually end up benefiting me in the long run with optimization because then brands can now write in their own styles. And so that kind of primes me very well to do that sort of stuff. So like I love doing everything I do related to AI is kind of like a side project, kind of for fun, a hobby, if you will. And I love that passion, and doing things like this, like for example, going on this podcast, helps fuel that passion and accelerates me further to help Amazon sellers, which is the ultimate passion I have. Because that's how the GBT started. I was like, hey, yeah, this might be cool for Amazon sellers. So I started it, and I just kept refining it. All of a sudden, people started using it, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is awesome. So I just kept going and going, iterating and iterating. But yeah, I'm excited to talk today about AI shopping, doing agentic lens.
Definitely. I'd love to get started into that. Again, super excited to have you here and really just want to pick your brain on all things Amazon Rufus. For those of you who aren't familiar with the research that Andrew has done with Danny McMillan, I would really recommend reading it. It is very in-depth, but so many great nuggets throughout, and you can really learn a ton about just how Rufus is gauging different shopping behaviors, creating personalization for shoppers, etc. So, Andrew, why don't you kind of start off there just talking about Rufus and its evolution? I know that you called out just a week or two ago that sponsored listings are now occurring. We're
Mhm,
now seeing some research by Ritu, and she just announced earlier
mhm.
today that we're also seeing that Rufus is understanding what you've previously bought and a lot of your past purchase behaviors, and you could directly ask it when product packages are going to arrive. So it really does seem in all facets that it is your personal shopping assistant. But why don't you kind of speak to how Rufus has continued to change the shopping journey compared to traditional keyword research?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of tracing back like historically, I remember back, let's say March 2024. Essentially what I saw, like, February was the launch, and then of course there was lots of like beta testers and such. And I remember first seeing Rufus in the wild when I was actually in the search results, and I was going down, and I saw some questions that were like a little blue pill shape. You know what I'm talking about? A little
Yep.
like, yeah, a light blue pill shape. And so I started clicking on it, and I'm like, whoa, wait a second. This isn't like the typical like basic natural language technique they might use in like the reviews and ratings, where you can go and you can ask a question, and then it'll use some semantic matching, and it'll take words from the reviews and then plug it into a brief like summary. Wasn't that great? This was something that was radically new. It was generative. And I knew it was generative as soon as I looked at it, because I've had so many conversations with AI before this. I'm like, okay, no, this has to be generative. So that was really the first thing that I saw regarding that. Uh, and then there was just lots of different tests that went on. Like, most people don't know this. You're going to be probably surprised about this. In fact, I don't even think I've told anybody but Max Sinclair about this. But it's like an image generator where you can go on the app, and this was released after March 2024. This was released in about June 2024 for just briefly. but it was so bad. I'm sure they got rid of it. It was called Create Style Ideas. So you'd be like on your app, on the Amazon app, and you'd go and you scroll, and where you see like view your room and such.
Yep.
There was a separate version. It said, view your room 3D, and then you could also click Create Style Ideas, and it would literally give you a prompt to be able to like create an image, a background image for your product. And it was so bad, right? And obviously they're beta testing it to some people, and I happened to be someone who was testing it, right? And I was testing a lot, and I realized like, okay, no, this is not going to be the thing yet. But as we know, AI is the worst it's ever going to be, and so it's going to continue to get better. So lots of generative features they've always been testing, like vision language models they've always had with like, taking a picture and such, and then being able to bring up a visually similar product, right? And then starting, I think it was July 2024, where I saw the first instance. I remember I have a screenshot of it, and I was just like, I don't know why I was so like, hey, look, see, there's a screenshot of it from this time. She's like, I don't care. No, she's been very supporting my Rufus endeavors, actually.
There we go. Shout out to Andrew's wife.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, I saw a screenshot of Rufus bringing an image into the chat, specifically. So it really started in July, beta testing it in July 2024. And then as time went on, of course, tons of different podcasts and videos came out about Rufus from others that very good, very insightful. But then I realized there wasn't anything truly in depth because it's so new, and we can give like all the hacks we want, but it was only from what we were testing at the time, and a lot of times that's all you can do until I found the patent for Rufus. So I guess this is another side thing about me is I love patents. I read them for fun. I know it's kind of weird. I've come through probably 1,000, just kidding. But I've narrowed down about 100 from the Amazon side of things that I believe are directly related to the A9 algorithm, not the A10 algorithm, the A9 algorithm, just to put things straight there. And so then I found the Rufus one. And of course, it's not going to just say, hey, here's the Rufus patent. I had to dig through all sorts of different papers that I'm like, no, this sounds like the project that it is. Researched all the authors from that patent. And then, of course, I dug in deep with it with Danny and Juana, who also did a phenomenal job and who also are world-class, experts on Rufus and AI and all things Amazon too. I feel like we did a great job in regard to that. And, identifying the core loves, of Rufus, of course, using semantic similarity to, identify something to see the intent behind a query. And so like Rufus, for example, loves noun phrases. We found he loves visual label tagging, hence, him bringing the images into the chat directly, both via desktop and mobile. Came mobile first, and then eventually came to desktop. And the thing with Rufus is, I think it's necessary to say this, is everything that they introduce new starts with the mobile and then works its way to desktop. I think probably you've noticed that trend. Yep. Like, oh, it starts mobile, it goes desktop. And that can happen with a lot of features and vice versa. Some things go to desktop first, then beta test, they say, oh, this is great, now let's put it in mobile. Right? We see that stuff all the time. And then, of course, we saw things like AI shopping guides and the like, and now we are seeing those on desktop, and now we are also seeing those on the iPad as well. You know what I'm most frustrated with? They do not have Rufus on the iPad other than on the product detail page at the bottom in the reviews and ratings section. It is so frustrating. I've actually reached out to somebody who works on that side of Amazon and asked, hey, when are we getting Rufus on the iPad? Because I've been so infuriated because I use my iPad more than anything else. So that was, so I don't think I'm going to get that, but.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Andrew, on that point, that's all super helpful context. What I'd love to understand is just in a lot of the research that you did, it came to light that a lot of the context that Rufus is learning from are things like your past behavioral data, like previous purchases, your browsing habits, any wish list items, just how you shopped on the site. So you might not get the same hiking boots as someone else who is shopping for hiking boots because of the context of and how Rufus is personalizing to you. But what I'd like to better understand too is what is the danger of Rufus limiting product exposure for emerging brands? When we talk about new brands that are trying to launch on the platform, if Rufus is relying so heavily on things like purchase velocity and reviews, that might establish a lack of competitive nature between emerging brands and some more established ones. So how can those other brands that are emerging continue to stand out? You talked about VLT, etc., but can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I really think it comes down to this, and this isn't talked about, I believe, enough, is inference. The big thing about LLMs is their ability to make inference at a low cost. Obviously, it'd be amazing if Amazon could just use Claude 3.7 to identify every single product every single time, but that's very costly, and they would go bankrupt if they did that with
Yeah.
every search, considering how many searches happen. So they're continually trying to find, like, okay, how can we provide good inference at a low cost, computational cost, with the number of tokens that are taken into account. And so, inference is what, making a conclusion based off, reasoning and evidence. And so one thing that we do as brands is we're providing evidence to Rufus, if you will, to that LLM, that our product is the one that you should choose over another. So the question being is, like, when you have general search terms, will new brands be able to show up? It's going to be hard, no. But in the long tail prompting questions, which I really believe that's what you're going to see the most of with Rufus. I don't think people are going to type in Rufus and just say decor necessarily, although they will. I think they're going to type in prompts. I think people are going to become more fluent in typing prompts, just as with anything. But it's a cultural movement, so it's going to take a little bit of time. I think the younger generations are catching on and doing very good. For example, my sister has used Rufus to renovate 4 Airbnbs now that
Really?
she's done, all of which have been doing great, and all are specific to the geographic location of that person. And it's been phenomenal, to like see that, like a real case, real world
Yeah.
example. I baby proof, I put my money where my mouth is, and I baby proof my home with Rufus. So I
That's
bought a
great.
gift for my wife with Rufus. It was great, because I'm like, if I'm really gonna say this stuff, I got to actually do it. I kind of thought to myself that I was like, okay, I'm gonna be all in, and so I use Rufus for everything. So it's funny when someone tells me that, oh yeah, no one uses Rufus, we don't. I'm like, well, I knew my wife does, my whole family does, but I'm like, well, Andrew, not everybody has a Rufus evangelist in their back pocket.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
But it's also to say, like, I wanted to show them the power of it,
Yeah.
and what it can do, and they've seen it, and it's like, man, I wish everyone could be educated that way on it, because they're not necessarily prompting it the right way. But I think that's the job of Amazon, to be able to put that into customers' minds. So, like, for example, I think they do a good job of that on the product detail page, where they have those preset prompts so that they
Mhm.
can see an output they want every time. I think, honestly, my two favorites, are, the what do customers say, because it brings in the lifestyle photographs from, when they ask what do customers say on mobile, it actually brings in the reviews with the photographic reviews, which
Mhm.
I think is one of the number one reasons that a product can convert. It brings it right then and there without having to. It eliminates the scroll time. And then, of course, checking price history, I think, is the coolest thing, and I'm surprised Amazon would do that. And some brands are probably
Yeah.
thinking, oh crap, they're going to see that I'm price gouging them, and it's going to lose trust with that person. Uh, but I also think, for brands, I think the long tail prompts will be the way that they end up getting found. And it could be something that, um, where they're like planning research. And typically, when you're researching, do you end up buying everything right away? No. Like, when I was baby proofing, I didn't buy everything right away. And I know this is one example, but I researched, I looked at all of it, I added it to my cart, made sure everything was okay, did some more research, etc. And then eventually I bought, what I was planning. And so, in a sense, it becomes a little bit like Pinterest, and then you're going to it, with the inspiration, the intent of research as well, and then going into, a- and here's the thing too. I don't mean to not finish my thought here, but the problem with going to other places to shop for Amazon with AI is, there's one thing Amazon is always going to do better than every other LLM and model, whether it be, Perplexity, Claude, ChatGPT, and that's recommend products on Amazon. Because I think it's safe to say that Rufus will know Amazon's products better than any of those others. Not to say those others aren't incredible. ChatGPT shopping is amazing. Perplexity shopping is amazing. I've used it, bought something from it. But when it comes to recommending products on Amazon, I've noticed Rufus is by far and away the best. And I think brands will do well to be able to optimize for inference. So putting as many use cases as possible in there that other big brands that would not have thought of otherwise. And I think it's also going to help with, product research, and the nicher you become, the better you are. So I think it's going to open up a play for more sellers to actually come in with new, with products that are, even nicher than before. So I think that's another thing as well. Creating inference pathways. So like, deciding, for example, if I'm a customer and I'm going to put in mirror, and then my past purchase history is like vintage, Victorian, things like that, right? It's going to inherently know to put words in there like, ornate, Victorian, vintage, etc. Right? But it might know that, hey, he bought one for the bedroom. He's already bought one for the living room. He's getting one for the bathroom. Oh, wait, that needs to be smaller then. It doesn't need to be bigger. So now it throws in the keyword small. So now you have 4 keywords that are the intent behind of what I'm doing, right? It's like, okay, not only does he want a mirror, not only is it, ornate, Victorian, vintage, but it's also something that's small because he needs one for his bathroom because he's already got one for his living room, his bedroom. Right. Unless it knows the past purchase is much older, then it might say, hey, he's actually renovating. And now Rufus knows he's renovating. So things like that. And maybe it can't do that perfectly now, but I really believe that's the future route that Rufus is going.
That's awesome. Yeah, super helpful context there. I want to talk a little bit more about AI shopping guides specifically and how they've driven smarter decision making overall. Can you go into just the depth of these guides specifically and what you've seen as far as trends when recommending products to you?
Absolutely. Typically when you go on a search, do you notice that you see bestseller, Amazon choice, popular, things like that? When you go to AI shopping guides, it's a little different. You have different use cases for, hey, best for soundproofing, best for exercise, right? For headphones. Because some are best for soundproofing, others like I'm not going to want to run with big headphones, right? Whatever. But even like AirPods, I'm thinking which ones will not fall out when I'm going. So when it says it's good for exercise, inherently it means that, hey, they stay in your ear well. Right? It inherently means it's the right fit.
Right.
So there's like best use cases for that go well beyond merely Amazon choice, bestseller, popular pick, trending item, although those things are there. Or influencers pick, you see things like that on the search results as well. But yeah, I think what you're seeing is a wonderful opportunity for like use case driven shopping. And, you see like, questions and answers too as well. So like what are the most popular questions and answers being asked? And then you also see things like, tons of different attributes, but very well organized and curated. And it's very inclusive too of a lot of brands. Like for example, the brand I worked for previously was when I was director of Amazon Touch of Class, we're a luxurious home decor brand. We're actually the 4th most popular brand in wall sculptures, like the sculpture section shopping guide. And I'm thinking in my mind, we're not like a gigantic brand. Like, yeah, we do well, sure. But we're not a gigantic 9-figure, 8-figure Amazon brand, right? Specifically. But so to see that we're up there like that makes me think, wow, okay, so smaller brands definitely have a chance of showing up in AI shopping guides. And I believe customers who end up going to AI shopping guides are ones that are like, hey, I really want to do research and be the most informed that I possibly can. And also, if you notice, it's in the keep shopping section. And by the way, you can go to the Amazon app to look at all these. You can go off to the right. You have those 3 little lines. You click it, and then you go to like all those separate apps that you can see. And then go to keep shopping for. It's like an orange app. It says keep shopping for on it. You click it. And that's actually where you can see the shopping guides. So you have the keep shopping for, and let's say it's a mirror, you click on the mirror. or past items you have. And then below that, it should say, it'll have bestsellers next to it, and then it'll have shopping guides right next to it. And you can go through that. So I think it helps a lot with product research and kind of facilitating on products that you've already viewed and looked at and clicked on. So using that click training data as an opportunity. And then also at the end of the shopping guides, it says most popular for you as well. So it's not just a curated selection of, best sellers, best use cases, most fitting attributes, but it's also most popular picks specifically for you as well at the end that you can do as well. And they used to only have about 10 to 20 guides. Now they have 200 AI shopping guides. And if you look even deeper, there's actually around 300 of them at least. I couldn't tell you for at night. Wife goes to bed, twins go to bed, and I'm just up at night. And usually I'm on my phone. I'm like, I'm going to go to the Amazon app because that's what I do. And I'm just going to click around for like literally an hour each night. And so that's, so that's what I did. And that's how I figured out like the visual label tagging aspect where Rufus brings in the images.
Right.
I'm like, I'm just going to spend like an hour. And so I ended up screenshotting like 30 examples. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then I shared it the other day and people were like, I like this. I thought, oh, nice. Okay. I was just scrolling on my Amazon app. It's not that deep. Okay.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. That's what I've really noticed. Just some of the visuals that you've brought in have been pulled from different aspects of the PDP that not a lot of people are typically drawn to, or just parts of the app specifically that not a lot of people are drawn to. So it's interesting also to see where some of Rufus is even indexing in these various aspects of Amazon overall, and how they're integrating AI in places where you wouldn't normally expect or see as forward facing as you would imagine either. But on that note, I want to talk a little bit more about the visual search in general and how Lens AI has really changed the visual search. Can you go a little bit into that as well?
Yeah, I'd like to preface, that Pinterest has always been ahead of the game in this. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of Pinterest, always have been. And also, I've never been a Google user. I've always only been a Bing user. People think I'm weird for that. I'm like, yeah, Bing user since 2016. I was Bing before it was cool. Yeah, so I'm a little bit biased. Yeah, maybe it's just my vendetta against Google. I don't know. But I used to use Google the other day, but that was for their AI mode, so I justified it. But like with Google, you have Google Lens, and then you have Pinterest Lens, if you will. But before that, Pinterest had some of the most in-depth, like cutting edge, world class, like well beyond any company in terms of vision language models. And I think Amazon and others recognize that. And I think they're definitely taking cues from Pinterest, because Pinterest was ahead of its time because it based its business model completely on visual intelligence, visual reasoning. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes us most human, right? Is being able to look at something and intuitively know the colors and see the style. AI, we've said this before with text. AI will never be able to do that and ends up doing it. Like, oh my gosh, it can do it, way better, especially with the new image generation models and such. But what's really cool about Lens AI is that it's not just a single image input. When you input the image, it's actually multimodal. You can put text along with it too. So, for example, if there's like for example, my wife is using painting furniture that she loves, that's she wouldn't have loved otherwise unless it was black. So instead of painting it, she says she goes to Amazon, she takes a picture of it, that exact style, etc., and then just types in the color black, and then it brings up all the ones that are black, right? Because when you bring up a typical language model, it's going to give you the exact color. It's not really going to let you personalize, by the color. But with Amazon, you can actually do that by adding the text with it. So you'd upload your image, and then you do that. And then, of course, you can select various aspects of it. So like if you're taking a picture of a room you really like maybe at a friend's house, whatever, and you're like, I like all this stuff. And then you end up deciding, I don't know if I like all this stuff, but I like that mirror in the back. And so then you like zoom in on that mirror, you like tag it or whatever. And then it brings up all the mirrors that way. And then you say, you know what, I like that style, but I want it to be circular. So then you put the text circular in there. So what's really cool is Amazon's making everything customer input more multimodal. It's using both text and it's using both image and text. And then, of course, now we're seeing voice. And I think we're really going to go towards voice even more. We can get into that in a little bit. But in terms of visual intelligence, Amazon has really stepped up its game and done very well, even competing with the likes of Pinterest um,
Yeah.
on that, which I do not say that lightly at all. I personally do not like Google Lens, but I think in terms of like the Lens AI, and by the way, this is a side note, but it's actually very necessary for the context. One thing you'll notice is Rufus actually rebranded on the mobile app instead of Rufus, and then it has the, the blue and
Hmm.
the orange. When you click on it, it has Rufus, and then it has a little AI symbol.
Yep.
Well, this little AI symbol is actually Amazon's customer-facing tech stack that you're going to see everywhere. You see it in the customer say. You see it now in Lens AI as of just like a month ago. You see it in the Rufus now, just within like less than a month ago. Um, and you see it in AI shopping guides as well, right? So you're seeing this continually happen. So you're seeing a whole brand of like, okay, Amazon is really digging in deep on this.
Right.
And things like every day someone bashes Rufus or whatever, something other with Rufus shows up. It's like Amazon knows, like, oh, that's not true. And then Rufus shows up through the whole customer journey before you know
Exactly.
it.
I want to
Yeah.
talk about just the agentic part specifically because I think that's really interesting. And I really love your take on whether you see sometime in the short term or long term full service shopping agents providing for all household needs. Is that something that you can envision happening in the next, call it 5 years or so, where we would just be working directly with an agent on basically providing these household needs, or how do you see the agent to human relationship evolving?
My filter on my fridge has been broken for a while. Uh, it would have been really nice if there was an agent that went and bought that for me already from
Yeah,
Amazon and had it
right.
delivered the time I exactly needed it. So yeah, I do. Let's say I need an oil change and I'm out of oil, and Amazon knows that, right? And their back end and their knowledge base, and the click training data, uh, and then even my bio demographic data, because I'll be able definitely to plug that in of like, hey, I'm doing this. These are the replacements I need. I need to change my oil this number of times, so send me oil, at this date, or just know inherently, hey, you're supposed to change your oil every 3 months. So by the way, I sent you this. I'm like, why did you send me something before I know it? I'm like, oh yeah, I needed this. Oh my gosh, I haven't been drinking filtered water. You sent me a new filter. Things like that.
Right.
Or it just inherently knows something's broken in it, and that connected device is connected to my Amazon app and Alexa Plus, and then
Right.
it orders it or it asks me. So Alexa Plus says, "Hey, do you need to reorder this? I see that you're out." Or if you want to go even weirder, let's say there's cameras inside of the house, and the camera sees that I'm in the pantry, I'm out of paper towels, and so it's like, "Hey, do you need more paper towels?" I'm like, "No, I bought paper towels last week." Before I know it, I go and I'm like, "Oh, yep, I need new paper towels," and it realizes that, right?
Right.
So all sorts of crazy stuff can happen. Maybe I'm just been watching too many movies and TV shows regarding AI, but at the
You
same
did
time,
talk
like,
about voice though. So talk about that a little bit more because I'm curious how you've seen the evolution of voice. You spoke about Alexa a little bit, but how is voice and voice AI really changing the game as well?
I think I really started to notice voice AI was changing the game when I saw my dad so reliant on it with just text messages and stuff.
Hmm.
And then also seeing Gen Z. Again, I will point to my wife. I feel like my wife keeps me ahead of the game, just because she's Gen Z. I'm a millennial. Uh, but she goes on TikTok and she uses voice for everything. She voice text, she voice that, she voice messages even. And then when she shops, she uses voice as well. And to be able to understand that and not type in, longer, like let's say longer phrases, but for natural language to understand those phrases. So it doesn't take away from the importance of keyword research. If anything, it makes it more important because you have a noun phrase, let's say like Victorian style wall mirror. Instead of saying Victorian style wall mirror, you can say, hey, I'm looking for a mirror that looks like this. And then you snap a picture with Lens AI, and then it takes into factor all of that. Or if you're just saying the voice like, hey, I'm looking for something that looks whimsigoth, I'm looking for something that's old looking, trendy or anthropology like, things like that. And so then Rufus, well, Alexa Plus will, let's say, for example, read that language. But even with Rufus, if you notice, I would definitely recommend people trying this. and I'm going to come out with a thing on it soon, is when you go to Rufus, it has one of the best voice command receptor, whatever you want to call it, I've ever encountered before. So when you go to Rufus, you hit the voice on Rufus, and it'll come up with a bunch of little orange circles doing its thing, acting like it's active, right? And then you talk to it, it renders it perfectly, because I have a lot of trouble with voice text with just my Apple phone. I'm like, it did not say that crap, it
Yeah.
said that. I didn't have to actually worry about that with the Amazon app. They have very cutting edge technology that they're definitely using from, Alexa, and eventually, Alexa Plus, as it continues to roll out here. But I think voice commerce is definitely a huge thing. But I think it's important to say, like, it's a huge thing just on the Amazon app. It's not like people have to go through Alexa. People think voice, they think, oh, you have to go through Siri to Alexa Plus. No, that's not really necessarily what we mean. We mean all the search voice aspects you see on every single app, right?
Right.
Whether it be, TikTok, YouTube, etc. And it just makes life so much easier because one thing that distinguishes us as humans is we speak. We not just think, but we also speak. And not everybody can think really in depth to get the right thing, but they can speak. And so it's not just about typing the right prompt per se on Rufus, but it's more on Rufus to interpret exactly what that customer needs based on what they're saying, and how they say things. So it's going to learn how they say things, their cadence and such. And a lot of this, of course, I'm looking more future. But like an example I've given people as well is, let's say you're talking about, you need something for your back, you need it like this, you need this sort of fabric, etc. You type it to Rufus, but then it also goes as an AI agent. We'll talk about this probably a little bit more, and it consults Health AI, Amazon's Health AI, which is an incredible thing that they have that's actually powered by Claude reasoning. So it consults that, and then the Health AI gives it the go ahead. Hey, this isn't going to kill you, or this isn't going to hurt you, and then you can have it ordered as well. So I think there's a lot of different aspects that are coming, and I think, like we said with Lens AI, we have image input, then we have text input, and then also we have voice input. So there's 3 modalities right there: verbal, visual, and voice is what I call them. Eventually video, but I think that's going to be a little bit harder and probably longer. However, every time I say that, people end up finding a way to make it happen. But yeah.
Truly. No, this has been incredibly insightful, Andrew, and I know we're just scratching the surface of everything that we could cover here. So I'll definitely have you back for our viewers sometime in the near future if you're willing. But I do really appreciate you joining me here today, and I hope that everyone watching here learned a little bit about Rufus. I know that sometimes a lot of this can be very packed with a lot of great information, but the way that Andrew broke it down was very easy to understand and follow here. And again, what Andrew said is 100% true. If you're not really scraping the Amazon app, you're missing something. There's so much to learn just simply by walking the site. So that's a big recommendation that I'm sure we both share as well. But Andrew, really appreciate you joining me here today, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day today. Thanks for tuning in to VENDO Velocity. Goodbye, everyone.